In this video lesson, we're going to be looking at drawing hair. Often in beauty retouching, you will need to draw in hairs to either clean the hair edge, clean the hairline, fill out eyelashes, or thicken eyebrows. In this video lesson, I'm going to show you how to do all of these things. Usually, you want to keep the hair edge as natural as possible, and that means just removing distracting hairs that might be breaking the main flow of the hair or sticking out in odd directions. And you want to always make sure that you follow the full length of the hair you're removing and do not stop dead at the general hair edge. So let's say that you have done your full retouch and you've sent it off to the client and they've come back and they want the hair edge to be cleaned up further. So let's go in and take a look at how to do that. This is sort of a natural hair edge, and to me it doesn't need much more work. But if your client wanted these areas to be cleaned up and they wanted this sort of area to be cleaned up and they wanted a very, very clean hair edge, what you would do is you'd just create a path, and for the purposes of this video lesson I've created a path just around the new hair edge, and then you would remove the hair, but obviously that doesn't look natural anymore. We would need to go in and make that hair edge look a little bit more natural because that's just very sharp and dead, that hair edge. So I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to go to my brush and I'm going to go to the brush settings, put shape dynamics on, and I'm going to set it to fade. And as you can see, fade makes the shape of the hair fade towards the edge of the stroke or the end of the stroke. So it's thicker at the start of the stroke and it goes thinner out towards the end. And the more you move the minimum diameter, the more even the spread, and the less the minimum diameter, the more of that hair-like shape it has. So if you, for hair, let's say you'd want something around there, and then you'd want to press noise on because we're going to be drawing in hair. You want to add some texture because you're adding fake pixels to the image. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go up to the top here and let's get our new layer and label it hair edge draw. Great, so we've got our brush, and all you need to do is you get quite a small brush and you sample the hair color. You've got to actually make sure your color layers are turned off, otherwise it'll duplicate that effect. And you just sample the hair color. That's going to be a bit too thick, that brush, so I'm going to go down even more than that, maybe there. And you just start drawing in some hairs, and you just make sure that you constantly sample, and your stroke always has to start from within the hair and then go out, because obviously if it starts over there, that's not going to be very realistic. So you've got to start from drawing in the hair and go out. And I can see that I need to actually up my minimum diameter, so I'm going to go to about there. That's better. And I'm just going to go around constantly sampling so that I'm getting various colors, and also just changing the size of the brush every now and again as well to get thinner and thicker hairs. And I'm just going to go around and soften up this edge. Great, so as you can see, that edge is now just a lot more natural. There's a few things I still need to do, and the first is that these actually, because they're new layers, they need to be up at the top of the layer stack. And then as you can see, I've had to draw onto her skin to make the flow of the hair go past her. So luckily I've got a mask for the skin. I'm just going to select, modify and feather that by 1.4 pixels, and I'm going to just erase that hair there. We don't need that. Then now, because we've drawn this hair, it's going to be a little bit too sharp, and what we need to do is we need to just blur this layer very slightly, but we also need to make sure that we blur the areas that are out of focus more than the areas that are in focus. So we just want to check that this is all on the same sort of focal plane. And I think we should be fine with blurring it all in one go. So let's go in and take a look at how much we need to blur it by. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm just going to take a look at what that's doing. I think 0.4 or maybe even 0.5 would be good. And that just stopped from looking so drawn. And I want to blur this a little bit more, so I'm going to go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur just at this end here, and I'm going to go to maybe let's zoom in there a little bit more. I'm going to go to maybe 0.9, then I'm going to get the history brush, and I'm going to go to Gaussian Blur. I'm going to take it back one step, one history state, and I'm just going to blur that section slightly more with that history brush on 100% there. And is there anywhere else I might want to blur that a bit more as well? And that's very basically how you clean a hair edge. Obviously, I don't think this image needed it. I'm just going to group these and call it hair edge. I don't think this image needed it, but if you did want to clean up hair, or if you had an image where the hair was too messy to get a nice natural hairline just with taking away flyaways, this would be your option of how you do that. So I've also done a similar thing with the hairline in this image. I've cleaned that hairline because it's a bit uneven, as you can see there. It needs some cleaning up to make it a smooth line. So I first cleaned that line up, and then I've drawn in some hair. But I'm going to show you how I did this by redoing it. Let's just label this hairline draw 2. So this would be a very similar approach. Because I'm going to be working in this highlight area here as well, I'm going to use the clone tool to draw the hair with. And that'll just pick up the actual texture and highlights of whatever area I'm working with. And you can see that you can then draw in the hair just as effectively with the clone tool. So I'm going to get the clone tool, and again I'm going to go to the settings, and I'm going to put shape dynamics on. And I'm going to set it to fade. I'm going to try around there. And now, because we're cloning, we don't need to put the noise on. That's just for when you're adding fake pixels to the image, but we're copying across real pixels, so we don't need to add the noise on. Obviously, this hairline is looking fake now because it's just that hard edge, and we really want to smooth that up. So I'm just going to make this quite a small brush, and I'm going to try to start just sampling and cloning. I think I might need to make that even smaller. And you want to go in the same sort of direction of the hair. You don't want to make strays that you would remove. So you always want to make it look as if it's been just really nicely polished. And I've found that actually the quicker you are with the stroke, the better the result generally is. If I go too slowly, it kind of gets a bit of a wobble in it. Whereas if I do a quicker stroke, I generally get a better result. So as you can see, when we get to this highlight area here, I'm just sampling from the actual highlight. And then that'll bring some of that effect through. And it'll look like it's the same hair that's being used there. If we're just to draw that in, it might look a bit dead in comparison. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this off with the clone tool. Great, and then that's the hairline filled in again. Again, you want to go in and you want to feather that, or blur that, sorry. So blur, Gaussian blur. Just going to take a look at that. I think 0.9 actually works on this. So I'm going to keep it there, maybe 0.8. 0.8. I'm going to OK that. Then I just want to go into the hair and I want to add a layer mask and get my brush. And I've just got a brush that sets everything back to normal, 100% with no brush settings. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to just, where you can see that it's been cloned, I'm just going to erase or brush out those areas. So that's the hairline done. Then there are still the eyelashes and the eyebrows, which I'll show you how to do as well. It's all very similar, and I'm sure you get the method by now. It's just different kinds of strokes, a slightly different approach, but it's the same technique. So here I filled in the eyelashes. So I'm going to take this off and add another one just to show you how I did that. Go eyelashes. And I'm going to get my brush and I'm going to go back to shape dynamics and again to fade. And because this is an eyelash, you actually want it to be have a little bit more of that effect to it. So I'm not going to make it as even as it was with the others, with the hair. I'm going to make it try about 30. And I'm going to add noise because I'm using the brush. And then just going to go in, maybe with a slightly thicker brush, and try and draw in some more hairs just to fill these eyelashes out. In this particular image, the lashes are going in quite different directions and it's not very natural, the look of the lashes. But it's not our job as retouchers to change what the makeup artist has intentionally done unless we're specifically asked to. So we're going to be working with the lashes as they are in this image. If you'd like to see a more natural lash line, then take a look at our video lesson on Naturally Perfect Beauty, where we filled in the lash line as well. So you generally just want to be quite quick with your brush, but just also get used to using the Control Z if you need to. And it gets a little bit easier with practice. But you just want to really try and follow what the hair would be doing or the eyelashes would be doing and make it quite an easy, natural thing for your hand to get used to. So just do practice this. Great, and that's the eyelashes filled in. Again, we need to go in and we need to blur that. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Let's take a closer look. I think we can go less than 0.8. Let's try 0.5. Let's just see what that's doing. Maybe even less than that, 0.3. And I think 0.3 is right, so we're going to leave that there. I can now sort of choose which eyelashes I prefer, the original ones or these ones. And I think I prefer these ones, so I'm going to delete the original ones. And I'm going to get the new hairline and compare it to the one I had before. I think I prefer the one from before, so I'm just going to delete that one. Then lastly, that leaves us with the eyebrows. And now that that's the only eyelashes, let's name it just eyelashes. So that leaves us with the eyebrows. Eyebrows are a similar thing again. I'm going to use the brush tool, and I'm actually going to leave it on the eyelash settings I have now, and I'm just going to see how it works. So let's get a new layer. The thing with eyebrows is that you want to be quite careful with the colors you pick. If you can see here, I've added in different colors. It's not just all one color, so you've got to be a little bit more careful than with eyelashes. So I'm just gonna get this brush, and it's still set to shape dynamics with fade, and it's got some noise, and I actually want to just get that minimum diameter and thicken it a bit, but not too much. And I'm just gonna sample colors, and I want to thicken it even more than that, somewhere between hair and eyelashes, I think. And that's looking a bit better. And I'm just sampling from the hairs near that hair I'm drawing, and I'm drawing in as I go, just filling in gaps. This is often a better way to do things than just trying to burn the eyebrows down. It creates a much more fuller, much more natural effect. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep sampling and keep brushing in until I've filled in all the gaps. And I think something like that is working. And you want to go in different directions. You want to follow the natural direction that the hair would be going in. Just sampling in as I go. Just be careful not to sample the skin color, because otherwise you'll be drawing lighter areas over the darker hair. Let's take a look at what that's looking like zoomed out. And that's filling it in nicely. I do still want a few more hairs over here. It's always helpful to zoom out and zoom in as you work, just to see what you're doing and the effect it's having. And I'm going to make that brush a bit smaller now. And then let's just fill in a little bit of this one as well. Same brush settings, obviously. Constantly sampling and just obviously trying to mimic the hair around. And then lastly, we need to blur this as well. So let's go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I think maybe let's try 0.5 on this. No, that's too much. Go back to 0.3. I think 0.3 is doing fine. So that's the eyebrows too. I'm going to just compare it to the initial eyebrows and see which I prefer. I think I prefer the initial ones, but that's how you do it. And there we've cleaned up the hair edge. We filled in the eyebrows. We filled in the eyelashes. And we've cleaned the hairline.